Following WrestleMania 18 and the now legendary Icon vs Icon match, Hulk Hogan would begin another babyface run within the WWE. It made sense. Not only did Hulk Hogan get a great ovation in the Toronto Skydome during his match with The Rock, but the glory days of Hulk Hogan happened while the Hulkster portrayed a good guy. In 2002, fans wanted to cheer for Hulk. Terry Bollea carried bags of nostalgia for older wrestling fans, and so the decision was made to let Hulkamania run wild once again in the WWE. Today, we're going to look at Hogan's entire Smackdown run that lasted until July of 2003. Hulk Hogan was made a Smackdown exclusive superstar during the first WWF Draft. Vince McMahon had also drafted The Rock to Smackdown. Hogan and Rock had gotten quite friendly with each other since their WrestleMania match, and this friendship would continue during their early days on the Blue brand. The very first match Hogan had on Smackdown was a 6-man tag. Hogan, Rock and Kane took on X-Pac, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall on the 28th of March 2002. Keep in mind that this show featured both Raw and Smackdown stars. It was the final TV presentation to mix Raw and Smackdown guys before the split rosters were officially put in place. Many people will remember the babyface's promo before the match where Kane began ripping off Rock and Hogan's catchphrases. It's one of those promos that stood the test of time. Kane pinned X-Pac during the match, and because the NWO got drafted to Raw, Hulk Hogan's association with the faction would now completely end. Of course, Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall would cross paths again years later, but we'll talk about that in a future video. For now, Hulk Hogan wouldn't be fighting for nor against the New World Order. The next week, Vince McMahon announced that Hulk Hogan was the #1 contender for Triple H's Undisputed Championship. The Undisputed belt was the main title within the WWF. Stars from Raw and Smackdown could compete for the belt, so this naturally led to other superstars from the opposite brand wanting to get in on the action. Raw's Steve Austin and The Undertaker also felt they should be in line for a title shot, so you had 4 huge superstars all wanting to call themselves the Undisputed Champion. Triple H and Hulk Hogan had an in-ring promo on SmackDown, and the Hulkster brought back the classic red and yellow babyface attire, further proving that the WWF were happy to ride the waves of nostalgia during the Hulkster's 2002 return. Hogan said during this promo that he never thought it could get bigger than WrestleMania 1, WrestleMania 3 or WrestleMania 18, but nothing is bigger than the Undisputed title. Triple H agrees there is nothing in this world bigger than the Undisputed Championship. Hunter says it'll be an honour to step into the ring with Hulk Hogan, but at the same time Triple H is a little sad that he's going to have to hurt Hogan badly at the Backlash pay-per-view. Triple H says Hogan isn't immortal, he isn't an icon, he's just like everyone else who stepped up to the game. But the Hulkster says that Hulkamania will run wild at Backlash. On the episode of SmackDown before Backlash, Vince McMahon called Hulk Hogan into his office. Vince said that he's seen this all before. This is just like the 80s when Hogan was going after the WWF Championship for the very first time. Vince wonders though if this newfound popularity for Hulk Hogan is empty, and Vince wonders if Hulk Hogan is truly ready to put his money where his mouth is when he goes one-on-one with the game on pay-per-view. Triple H also gets summoned to the chairman's office, and Vince wondered if Triple H truly had it in him to drive a spear through the heart of Hulkamania. The boss then decided to force Hunter and Hogan to team up in the SmackDown main event in a match against Kurt Angle and Chris Jericho. Hogan accidentally hit Triple H with a steel chair, and the game gave Hogan a little payback towards the end of the bout. Hollywood Hulk Hogan would win the WWF Championship at Backlash, and I'd like to say this came as a shock, but when you really think about it, we should have fully expected this to happen. I don't think it was the right call though. Hotshotting the new Undisputed title belt, to me, devalued the championship, and it really didn't matter who wrestled Triple H here at Backlash. I still think Triple H should have held on to the title a little longer in order to establish the belt a little more. I know, how dare I say Triple H should hold on to a championship belt, but it's true. Hulk Hogan did not need to hold any title belts in 2002. Vince McMahon was trying to capitalise on the return of Hulkamania though. That WrestleMania X8 reaction was too good to ignore, and so with the help of an interfering Undertaker, Hulk Hogan became the man one more time in the World Wrestling Federation. Because The Undertaker defeated Steve Austin at Backlash, Big Evil was named the #1 contender for the championship, so Hulk Hogan would defend the title against The Undertaker at the Judgment Day pay-per-view. On the road to Judgment Day, Hulk Hogan defended the Undisputed Championship against Chris Jericho in a no disqualification match. The match took place on the May 2nd episode of Smackdown, and it's one of those main events that's been pretty much forgotten about. The match ended when Triple H set up a distraction for Chris Jericho. This allowed the Hulkster to roll up Y2J and score the pinfall win. The following week, the Hulkster was booked in a tag match, Hogan and Edge versus Kurt Angle and Chris Jericho. This began an on-screen friendship between Edge and Hogan. Hogan's partner went into Hogan's locker room and he found Hogan's red and yellow gear. Edge decided to try on the Hulkster's bandana because he was such a big Hulkamaniac as a kid. And well, Edge got caught by Hogan. Edge began marking out when the Hulkster began cutting a promo, and this right here was another good backstage segment where Hogan was being used in the right way as a piece of wrestling nostalgia. The tag team match ended with Triple H coming down and completely wrecking everybody. The next week on Raw, we went back in time when Hogan stepped into the ring with the Nature Boy Ric Flair, and no matter what you may think of the WWF presenting a Flair vs Hogan match in 2002, the bout got a great reaction from the fans in attendance. Hogan won the match, but later in the evening, The Undertaker came after the Hulkster. Hogan was about to leave the arena, but Big Evil decided to hog-tie Hogan to his motorcycle. The dead man then proceeded to drag Hogan around the backstage area in a spot that actually looked more funny than painful. On the Smackdown just before Judgment Day, Hogan cut a promo where he said the reality of the world currently sucks, but the fans have given Hogan a chance to let Hulkamania run wild once again, and he thanks everyone for giving him this chance to live a dream. Vince McMahon interrupted the promo. Vince said that reality doesn't suck, but Hulkamania does. Hogan's red and yellow colours stand for the blood that's going to flow out of Hogan's body at Judgment Day, and the yellow streak that goes all the way down Hogan's back. Vince then slapped Hogan, and Hogan retaliated by hitting the leg drop. Keep in mind that this episode of Smackdown was in Montreal, so Vince was giving fans what they wanted to see. Vince must have felt he made the right booking decision at Judgment Day when The Undertaker defeated Hogan for the Undisputed title. The match wasn't great, and it seemed like the quality of Hogan's matches were dropping as the weeks went on. Hogan and Rock captured lightning in a bottle at WrestleMania 18. Hulk and Triple H tried to reenact many of the spots found in the Rock vs Hogan WrestleMania match, but they failed. And here at Judgment Day, it just seemed like Hogan and Undertaker didn't mesh well at all. Two legends here without a doubt, two of the biggest and most important names in wrestling history, but they had a poor match here. Something I want to point out though is the fact that Hogan was still getting great crowd reactions, taking nothing away from the Hulkster's unwavering popularity in 2002. It's incredible how many fans were wearing Hulkamania t-shirts and Hulkamania bandanas. So while it's easy for anyone to criticise Hogan's later WWE performances, people also have to realise that Hollywood Hulk Hogan was still over during this time in his career. The next night on Smackdown, Hulk Hogan came out to announce his retirement. Vince interrupted Hogan by saying there was no chance in hell Hogan was leaving the WWE. Vince said that Hulk walked out on him before, and McMahon is not allowing it to happen again. The Hulkster signed a contract, and if Hogan leaves, he'll get sued and taken for everything he's got. Vince says he owns Hulkamania, and he intends on milking Hulkamania for every cent he can until the day Hogan dies. Hogan attacks Vince and The Undertaker makes the save, so it looks like Hulkamania is indeed going to continue running wild in the WWE. I wanted to bring this segment up too, because you can hear Hulk Hogan's Voodoo Child theme right after Hogan announces his retirement. The WWE didn't secure the rights to use the iconic Jimi Hendrix track on DVD and on WWE Network releases, but I think someone may have forgotten to cut it out here. Understanding that Hogan's shortcomings would need to get covered up in the future, two key decisions were made. First of all, Hogan would begin a rivalry with Kurt Angle, which would lead to the Hulkster's next pay-per-view match. With Angle being considered as one of the WWE's top in-ring workers, it made sense to put Angle in there with the Hulkster to carry their match forward. The second decision that was made would be to feature Hulk Hogan in more tag team matches. This way the spotlight could get taken off Hulk a little during his matches, and he would also have time to recuperate a little from bell to bell. Kurt Angle made Hulk Hogan tap out at the King of the Ring pay-per-view, and the difference in match quality here is like night and day when compared to the Judgment Day main event. Kurt dominated most of the match, but in doing so, he was also carrying the bout forward. He also made Hogan look great when he needed to, and in the end, Kurt Angle was able to defeat Hogan clean in the middle of the ring with the ankle lock. A few weeks later, Hogan teamed up with Edge once again, and the duo defeated Billy and Chuck to win the WWE Tag Team titles. As it was the 4th of July, the Hulkster came out the real American once again, and yeah, it was pretty awesome. Hogan's next 4 televised matches were all tag team bouts. Edge and Hulk defeated Billy and Chuck once again the next week on Smackdown. Edge, Hogan and Rikishi defeated the un-American team of Christian, Lance Storm and Test on the 18th of July episode of Smackdown. And then at the Vengeance pay-per-view, Edge and Hogan dropped the tag titles to Christian and Lance Storm. On the next episode of Smackdown, the Hulkster teamed up with The Rock to defeat Christian and Storm via disqualification, and then Hogan went back to working with Kurt Angle on the August 1st episode of Smackdown. The following week, Hulk Hogan stepped into the ring with Brock Lesnar in a number 1 contendership match, and Brock Lesnar completely destroyed Hogan in the middle of the ring. The referee called for the bell when Hogan was locked in a bear hug. The Hulkster had been rendered unconscious by the next big thing. After the match, Lesnar continued to decimate the Hulkster, and then Hulk Hogan disappeared from TV. The WWE would say that Hulk Hogan got injured during this Brock Lesnar beatdown as a way to explain his absence, but it's also been reported that Hogan wasn't happy with his current run. It's never been confirmed, so take all this with a grain of salt. Hogan had lost to The Rock, The Undertaker, Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar on TV, and it was rumoured that Hogan would again lose to Brock Lesnar later down the road at the Survivor Series pay-per-view. Who knows, but Hogan did not return to the WWE until January of 2003, just in time for WrestleMania season. Again, it's all rumours and speculation here, but knowing what we know about Hogan's backstage shenanigans, it's easy to believe this kind of thing when it gets reported. It's also very possible that Hogan was just taking time off to heal injuries, but it's hard to believe Vince would give Hogan time off with how hard the Hulkster was being pushed during 2002. Whatever the case, Hogan made his return and he was booked to face The Rock at No Way Out 2003. A big rematch here, but the dynamic had been changed in a big way. Hogan was the babyface and The Rock was the heel. The Hulkster was once again booked to lose against the Great One, and while no one really talks about this No Way Out main event, I still think it's a really fun match. The Rock was on point here, his new heel character was extremely entertaining, and in the end, The Rock was able to defeat Hogan with the help of a dodgy referee and Vince McMahon himself. Vince had been a thorn in Hogan's side since the Hulkster got drafted to Smackdown the previous year, and it was all going to come to a head on the WWE's grandest stage. WrestleMania 19 would feature Hulk Hogan versus Vince McMahon, and I don't think anyone could have predicted just how good this match would turn out. McMahon and Hogan had one of the better stories going into their WrestleMania match. There was a lot of history brought up. Vince would say that he created Hulkamania. Hulk Hogan only became a huge superstar because Vince McMahon put him in the position to be one. Of course, there was no mention of Hogan in the AWA here, but let's not ruin a good story. Vince also said that Hogan turned his back on him by joining Ted Turner in the mid-90s, and Hogan also ruined their friendship when the Hulkster testified against McMahon during the 1994 trial. Hogan, being the babyface that he was, said that nobody created Hulkamania but the fans, and it was those same fans who made Hogan a star, not Vince McMahon. Vince would say that Hulk was just the right guy at the right time, and yes, this led to Hogan slipping up in a terrible way during a promo in one of the more infamous botches in wrestling history.
If you actually think that I was just the right guy at the right place
That little clip isn't on the WWE Network, by the way, but still, it was a good story the WWF were trying to tell because it felt natural and it felt real. Mean Gene Okerlund was brought in to oversee a contract signing between Hogan and McMahon, but Vince attacked the Hulkster from behind. Vince would sign the match contract with a pen, while the Hulkster signed his name with his own blood. The match at WrestleMania would get billed as a showdown that was 20 years in the making, and it was surprisingly good. Both Vince and Hogan understood their limitations here, so instead of trying to stumble their way through a wrestling match, McMahon vs Hogan was booked as a street fight, and these two beat the hell out of each other during WrestleMania 19. Plenty of chair shots, plenty of blood, and there's even a leg drop from the top of a ladder from Vince McMahon. Roddy Piper showed up when both Hogan and Vince were on the mat. Piper let fans wonder who he was going to attack, but in the end, the hot rod hit Hogan with a lead pipe. The fans popped when they saw Piper, but they quickly turned on him when he attacked Hogan. Still, this wasn't enough to end Hulkamania. Hogan finished Vince off with 3 consecutive leg drops. Go and watch this one as soon as you've got the chance. Following WrestleMania, Vince McMahon decided to go back on his word. He now didn't want Hogan in the WWE, and the Hulkster was fired on the Smackdown episode that followed WrestleMania 19. Hogan wouldn't stay away for long though. On the April 24th episode, Stephanie McMahon announced that a new superstar would make his debut the following week, a superstar that embodied the spirit of the United States, Mr. America. Mr. America would make his debut during a Piper's Pit segment, and yeah, no one was fooled at all here. Taz and Michael Cole laughed as a masked Hulk Hogan made his way to the ring. Cole said it looked like Mr. America had spent some time on Venice Beach getting a tan. Roddy Piper called Hogan out right away, but Mr. America said he wasn't Hulk Hogan while lacing his promo with the words brother, Jack and dude. Vince McMahon came out, how dare Hulk Hogan defy the chairman, but it didn't matter. This wasn't Hulk Hogan, it was Mr. America. Stephanie McMahon had signed Mr. America and not Hulk Hogan. Vince tried to fire this new superstar, but Mr. America said he signed a contract that stated he couldn't get fired nor suspended. Maybe the greatest perk Hogan ever got in any contract ever. So it became a mission for Vince McMahon to expose Mr. America by ripping the mask off Hogan's face. If Vince could remove the mask, he could prove it was Hogan, and therefore Hulk Hogan would have to go home because the Hulkster was officially fired. Mr. America only had 3 matches inside a WWF ring. He defeated Roddy Piper at Judgment Day 2003. He was defeated on Smackdown by Sean O'Haire via countout, and this led to Mr. America being forced to take a lie detector test. Mr. America passed the test, by the way. Even cutting-edge technology couldn't prove that this was Hulk Hogan. And finally, Mr. America teamed up with Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar in a losing effort against The Big Show, Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin on the 26th of June episode of Smackdown. This show took place inside Madison Square Garden. After the show went off the air, Mr. America unmasked and he showed the fans that he was indeed Hulk Hogan. And the very next week, Hulk Hogan legitimately quit the WWE. The company used the footage of Mr. America unmasking to explain why Hogan had been, quote, fired, but Hulk was really gone. It's been reported that Hogan decided to leave over his WrestleMania 19 pay, and also he apparently wasn't happy with the creative direction of his character. Mr. America vs Vince McMahon was apparently going to take place on pay-per-view, and the match would be a hair versus mask match. If Vince won, then Hogan would have to unmask and therefore he would get fired. If Mr. America won, then Vince would have to get his head shaved in the middle of the ring. This, of course, didn't happen, although Mr. McMahon getting his haircut would get used 4 years later at WrestleMania 23. Again, it's all rumours, but it does make a lot of sense. One thing is for sure though, the Madison Square Garden Smackdown event, Hogan's final date of this run, that drew a much smaller audience than the Raw show that took place inside the Garden during the same week. The Smackdown brand continued on without Hulk Hogan. The Hulkster's WWE contract was terminated, and Hogan decided to take a trip to Japan, where he faced Masahiro Chono in New Japan Pro Wrestling inside the Tokyo Dome. The Hulkster would make a WWE comeback 2 years later though, after he received his Hall of Fame induction. Hulk was specifically brought back into the company to begin a rivalry with Shawn Michaels, and I know it's been covered to death, but I need to talk about the HBK versus Hogan match if I want to cover Hogan's entire career. So that video will get uploaded soon. In the end, I don't think Hogan's Smackdown runs in 2002 and 2003 were bad at all. The crowd loved seeing the red and yellow Hulkster back in the ring, and while the matches may not have been classics, the fans still enjoyed having Hogan back. If I had to choose one match from this whole time frame to recommend, it would be the Hogan vs McMahon showdown at WrestleMania 19. If you haven't seen it before then, you're in for a real treat. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.